is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Good evening, everybody. Well, quite dramatic events happening all over the world, including Donald Trump late last night, bringing in a complete travel ban on aeroplanes coming in from the EU's Schengen area. For the moment, flights from the United Kingdom and Ireland will continue to go to and from the United States of America. Ireland announcing that large-scale public events are cancelled, schools are closing, and many of these things happening all over Europe. Israel now effectively closed to foreign travellers. Australia effectively closed to foreign travellers. Austria now with a border preventing Italians even entering Austria unless they've got a clean bill of health, which of course you can't get, because you only get tested if you've got symptoms for having coronavirus. So really strong action being taken all over the world. Stock markets tumbling. The FTSE today, I'll talk more about this later, having its worst day since 1987. And in the last hour, following a COBRA meeting, here was what Boris Johnson had to say.
We've done what can be done to contain this disease, and this has brought us valuable time, but it's now a global pandemic, and the number of cases will rise sharply. Indeed, the true number of cases is higher, perhaps much higher, than the number of cases we have so far confirmed with tests. And I've got to be clear, we've all got to be clear, this is the worst public health crisis for a generation. Some people compare it to seasonal flu. Alas, that is not right. Owing to the lack of immunity, this disease is more dangerous, and it's going to spread further. And I must level with you, level with the British public. More families, many more families, are going to lose loved ones before their time. From tomorrow, if you have coronavirus symptoms, however mild, either a new continuous cough or a high temperature, then you should stay at home for at least 7 days to protect others and help slow the spread of the disease. We advise all those over 70 with serious medical conditions against going on cruises, and we advise against international school trips. At some point in the next few weeks, we are likely to go further, and if someone in a household has those symptoms, we will be asking everyone in that household to stay at home. We're not introducing this measure yet for reasons Sir Patrick will explain, but I want to signal now that this is coming down the track. We are considering the question of banning major public events such as sporting fixtures, and the scientific advice, as we've said over the last couple of weeks, is that this banning such events will have little effect on the spread. But there is also the issue of the burden that such events can place on public services. So we're discussing these issues with colleagues in all parts of the United Kingdom, and we'll have more to say shortly about the timing of further action in that respect. At all stages, we have been guided by the science, and we will do the right thing at the right time.
That was Boris Johnson telling us it's the worst public health crisis we've faced for a very, very long time, telling us that quite a lot of us will lose family members before their time, telling us that they are ready to act, but the moment is not quite yet. Let's listen to Sir Patrick Vallance, the Chief Scientific Advisor, and this, I think, is a very, very important point, talking about, as the disease spreads through the population, us building a herd immunity.
So we're trying to reduce the number of cases at any one time. That's very important for NHS in order to make the NHS able to cope with this. And it's also important because it pushes it out into summer months where the NHS is less busy, but also where there may be less transmission of virus. Respiratory infections in general tend to be a bit less common. So that's one aim, is to change the shape of this. And it's important to recognise it's not to stop everybody getting it. You can't do that. It's not possible to stop everybody getting it. And it's also actually not desirable because you want some immunity in the population. We need to have immunity to protect ourselves from this in the future.
Did you hear that? Did you take that in? The chief scientific advisor to the government said it is not desirable to stop the spread of this disease. Otherwise, we will not build herd immunity. Could that be why we're not acting as radically as many of our friends and neighbours? And Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, made a point about acting too early. Try this argument for size.
Now, in terms of what can people do to make sure that we have the smallest impact from this epidemic that is possible, and we need to do the right things at the right time. And just to add one point to the reasons that Sir Patrick has just given, if people go too early, they become very fatigued. This is going to be a long haul. It is very important we do not start things in advance of need.
So this argument, we've heard it from Matthew Hancock in the House of Commons, we heard it today from all the speakers at that press conference. We mustn't act too early, because if we tell people to take tough measures early, they'll get bored with it and start breaking the regulations. I'm not sure that I buy that, but what an interesting comment, that if this spreads through the community, we will develop a herd immunity. Boris Johnson on Good Morning Britain a few days ago kind of hinted at this. I'm not going to give you a scientific opinion on that because I'm not qualified to do so. But somebody who is Dr. Alan Marion Davis, Honorary Professor of Public Health at King's College London. Alan, thank you for joining us this evening.
That's it, Michael.
Good evening. So, from a scientific perspective, does Sir Patrick Vallance have a point that it's not desirable to try and stop the spread of this, but you allow it to happen slowly through the community so that the NHS can cope and so that we develop herd immunity?
Well, I think it has a point that the idea is to make it develop slowly through the community to slow the spread of the disease. That's certainly an important thing, so that we avoid a massive peak which will overwhelm the NHS and care services. So we do want to slow it down. But I too am a little bit concerned about the notion of just letting it sort of run riot through the population, because the worry is that if that does take place, then of course a lot of people will become infected who actually will get very ill with this virus, and I think there's a risk that that plan might backfire. So I'm personally not too happy about that, but I mean that's obviously the chief medical officer has the full evidence available. They do all the modelling, they look at all the statistics, and they look at all the evidence, and that's the course they've chosen to take, and they must have good reason for that.
Well, I mean, clearly they're basing it on science, which is this concept of herd immunity, which let's hope to goodness that they're right. But a lot of other countries, Alan, are now trying their damnedest to stop this spreading any further. I mean, Italy is now virtually living under martial law where, police stop you in the street, ask where you live, and if you're too far from home without a good reason, you're fined €250. Now, I'm not saying I want us to live like that, but what I'm saying is that many countries in the world are doing their damnedest to stop it spreading. Do you think we should be doing more?
Well, I think it is a question how you phase it. I mean, we are about 2 or 3 weeks behind Italy, probably, if the models are correct. So perhaps it is a bit too early to go to that. Obviously, steps like that are planned. They're in the planning process, but it's a question of when do you trigger those. There is obviously some sense in saying we mustn't trigger some of these more draconian things too soon, because how are people going to keep that going for weeks and even months? So it's careful choreography, but obviously what I trust the chief medical officer. I trust the chief medical officer to be more concerned about the health of people than about the health of the economy. But I do hope that there's not pressure being put on him to do it the other way around.
That's a very, very powerful point. Thank you very much indeed, Alan Marion Davis, Honorary Professor of Public Health at King's College London. And let's update you on the Italian situation. Actual cases confirmed now, 12,839. Hospitalised, and this is the horrifying figure, 6,650. So, we're looking at half of those with confirmed cases are being hospitalised. Intensive care, 1153. Deaths, 1,116, up another nearly 30% overnight. So, sadly, no case in Milano particularly, but in Italy, of this even beginning to slow. And I sense something going on here, that most of our friends and allies are taking radical action to try to stop the spread of coronavirus. And they may or may not be successful. We have taken a different view. Boris Johnson has told us many of our loved ones will die early. It's the worst public health crisis for ages. But we're not going to act. Oh, don't go on a cruise if you're old. If you're ill, stay at home. We might ban a few school trips. That literally is all that came out of that press conference. And the clue, and we'll play it again over the course of the next hour, but the clue was what Sir Patrick Vallance said, the Chief Scientific Officer, that his view is it is not desirable to stop the spread of this through our community. He wants it to happen gradually and slowly so the National Health Service can cope and that we develop a herd immunity, which is what normally human beings do in viral crises like these. We're not going to close any schools. We're not even going to ban sporting events. No, what's going to happen, folks, in my view, is that we are going to voluntarily begin to close down as a country. I've even, and don't laugh, but I've even made my own decision on this. I was going to the racing at Cheltenham tomorrow. I would have loved it, had a great time, lost money, obviously, but I'd have had a great time, and I've decided, no, I can't go tomorrow to Cheltenham, because I'd be a bit of a hypocrite, wouldn't I? Urging the government to take action and turning up at a mass public event myself. I really don't think we're doing enough. I genuinely don't. But you tell me, does the government's response to all of this make sense to you? Let me know on 0345 6060 973. This is the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
The UK has moved on to the delay stage of its response to the coronavirus outbreak, as the Prime Minister calls it the worst public health crisis for a generation. At the moment, there won't be any school or college closures or a ban on sporting events, but people showing symptoms should stay at home for a week. At least 590 people have been diagnosed with COVID-19 in the UK, with 10 patients having died. LBC weather staying windy across the UK this evening with further scattered showers. Wind and rain easing for most overnight, a low of freezing.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are delays on the M4 eastbound after an accident earlier between junction 5 for Langley and junction 4B at the M25. All the lanes are open again. On the M25 anti-clockwise, there's a lane closed between junction 30 for Lakeside and junction 29 for Romford. That's because a lorry is having a tyre changed. There were delays on the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 8 for Reigate to Clackett Lane services because of the roadworks. It's slow on the A3 Clapham Common south side. It's partly blocked both ways between Nelson's Row and Clapham Common station because of an accident. It's very slow in Whitton on Chertsey Road westbound after an accident earlier before the Hospital Bridge roundabout. And on the trains, there's no service on London Overground between Clapham Junction and Surrey Quays. That's because of a signal failure.
The coronavirus outbreak from every angle.
What we know, what we don't yet know.
For expert analysis and all the latest information, stay with LBC.
Hey, pretty smiling people.
At Morrison's, get 1 litre bottles of Smirnoff vodka and Gordon's gin for £16 each. Morrison's. Majority of stores while stocks last was £20.50 each. Excludes Wales, Scotland and online. Smirnoff ends 17th of March. Max 3 of each. Please drink responsibly.
This is LBC.
Oh, yeah. High quality, affordable kitchens designed in your own home. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
Book your free Room Sense home design visit and we'll measure up, show you samples, create a stunning kitchen design and give you a quote all before we leave.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Book today at roomsense.co.uk.
Here's to the ones who make it look easy. The Lewis Hamiltons, the Rory McIlroys, the Virgil van Dijks. They make it look easy, and with Sky Q, we make watching them easy. Get all the sport you love, including the Masters, F1, and Premier League on Sky Sports, and UEFA Champions League and Premier League on BT Sports. Sky Q, all in one place. Easy. Content based on subscription. See sky.com for details.
Final call for passengers on flight BU372 to Berlin.
The average time between a final call and boarding is 4 minutes and 53 seconds. An unofficial fact officially brought to you by Betfair Casino. Because when there's a chance,
Perfect.
There's always a chance. Make the most of any chance with 30 free spins. Betfair Casino. Play today.
Free spins apply to new Betfair customers who have not played casino or arcade. Available on selected games. T's and C's at betfair.com. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
The real reason Sleeping Beauty fell asleep was because it was taking so long for the palace to sell. And the handsome prince needed the proceeds to buy their new home with no time to dwell.
I know who can help. Property Rescue. I'll contact them straight away.
So he spoke to their friendly team who took care of every detail. They bought the palace direct with no legal fees to pay. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to solve.
Chris is feeling confident after getting 10% off a set of Michelin Cross Climates and a free safety kit at QuickFit. So he's finally popping the question.
Will you let me turn the spare room into a man cave?
Brave man. Book at quickfit.com or visit your local QuickFit and drive away happy. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
If you really want to understand the UK government's response to the coronavirus crisis, listen to the words less than an hour ago from Sir Patrick Vallance, the Chief Scientific Advisor.
It's not possible to stop everybody getting it, and it's also actually not desirable because you want some immunity in the population. We need to have immunity to protect ourselves from this in the future.
And that is why, folks, Boris Johnson is not closing schools, is not banning sporting fixtures, is not stopping flights coming in from all over the world. It has been decided we will allow the slow and steady spread of this virus through the population so that we develop herd immunity. Scientifically, whether that's right, I don't know. Politically, I think it's wrong. But kind of there was a hint, because Boris Johnson was on ITV's This Morning the other day, and this is what he said.
One of the theories is that, perhaps you could sort of take it on the chin, take it all in one go and allow the disease, as it were, to move through the population, without really taking as many draconian measures. I think we need to strike a balance.
So there we are. That was a real hint from Boris. You could see when he answered that, these were the influences upon him. As I say, scientifically, from what I understand of virology, normally when there is a mass outbreak, we do, in fact, in the end, develop herd immunity. But let me ask you, who of you wants your family or friends to contract this disease in order for us to develop a national herd immunity? Maybe like me, you'd rather we took tough measures now to try and stop the spread of this and to contain it to as fewer people as possible. Now, that may not be possible, but I think that's what we should be trying. I really don't think the government's response makes sense, because he's telling us on the one hand, it's awful, it's the worst crisis in years, a lot of people are going to die, and on the other, we're doing nothing other than saying don't go on a cruise. Doesn't add up to me. Let's see what Paul, a new caller from Muswell Hill, makes of it. Paul, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome.
Hello.
So, does it make sense, Paul?
No, I mean, I'm living at home with my parents. My mum's 79, my dad's 81. I don't want them to die in the meantime while the rest of the world's getting immune. You know?
Absolutely.
You know, and like we're one of the relatively rich countries, and countries who don't have the strength of economy we do are hitting it, are taking an economic hit now, aren't they? They're being tougher now, and we seem to be sort of reluctant to really take big measures.
We are. I mean, look, and I don't know, because in about in about half an hour's time, the French president is addressing the nation from the Elysee. You can bet every penny in Lombard Street to an orange that he is going to take tough measures in France. We're seeing Denmark last night taking tough measures. A friend of mine was in Singapore a couple of days ago. Amazing. He said literally the restaurants wouldn't let you in until you'd first been temperature tested. And and amazing, Paul, every Singaporean citizen was getting a daily email from the government updating them what was happening, what the government was doing. And we appear to be doing nothing, Paul.
I know, and like even the Irish guy on the telly this morning from Washington.
Yep.
He was saying closing schools, and, and I was thinking, great. Well, when Cobra have had their meeting, they'll be doing it the same. And now they come out and, like you say, it's like they want us to.
Yep.
They want us to get ill, and they want, and even Boris Johnson says, "Oh, you're going to lose loved ones." But I mean, I want them to sort of be able to say, no, we're going to take this seriously. You're going to have to, take it on the chin. You're going to have to stay at home. You don't go to school. I mean, these sporting events, I mean, they've got to cancel them because all the supporters are doing.
They're not. Paul, they're not. Paul, I think the point you've made is a really key point. You don't want your 79 and 81-year-old parents to contract this virus as a means of us developing herd immunity. It's a very, very powerful point, and thank you for coming on and making it. On Twitter I get, Mr. Farage, pack it in. You're not an expert. We need to listen to those who know more than us. The trouble is, dear boy, the experts disagree. Because the experts in other countries think radical action needs to be taken to stop the spread of coronavirus. The UK experts advising Boris Johnson think it's impossible to stop the spread, and here's the key word, that it's not desirable. What a word that was. It's not desirable to stop the spread. So the point is, scientific experts disagree. In the end, what you do is a political decision. And I would argue this. However bad this gets over the next weeks and months, people will forgive a government who they think did their absolute best, did their damnedest to be on their side. And that's the risk, politically, that I think Boris Johnson is taking. Let's go to Jill, a new caller from Dorking in Surrey. Jill, good evening.
Good evening.
So does it make sense? Does Johnson not taking any action, does it make sense?
I disagree that he's not taking any action.
What's he doing?
I listened
to
the whole of the press conference, the same as you did, and what you've done is just pick out one isolated statement. What I heard was very carefully nuanced arguments, weighing up the pros and cons of different actions at different times, and coming to a finely balanced judgment as to what was the best way of protecting
Jill, tell me, what action are we taking?
You know what action we're taking.
No, tell me today, tell me right now, given that we've got radical measures taken on Ireland, America, Israel, also, I could go on, a list as long as your arm, tell me at that press conference today, despite the fact that he told us that many families would lose loved ones, what action did he take? Right.
There's clearly there is a whole Cobra meeting with detailed scrutiny.
No. Jill, what action did he take? What action did he take?
What action he took was an extremely comprehensive communication exercise to try and explain the complexities of something, Nigel, which you are oversimplifying and you are undermining really serious and important public health messages.
All right, Jill, stay with me. Jill, stay with me. Stay with me, Jill.
In the expert.
Jill, stay with me. Jill, listen. Oh, you can't listen. Is it impossible? Oh, dear. Jill, I was really going to try hard with you. Will you listen for 10 seconds?
I will certainly listen.
Right, listen to an expert. Listen to one of your favourite experts for 10 seconds. Here he is. His name is Sir Patrick Vallance, the Chief Scientific Advisor.
It's not possible to stop everybody getting it, and it's also actually not desirable because you want some immunity in the population. We need to have immunity to protect ourselves from this in the future.
Now, Jill, maybe you agree, but we are being told by the man that is guiding Boris Johnson's do-nothing policy that it is not desirable to stop the spread of coronavirus. Do you agree with that?
What he explained is about virology and about how immunity develops in a population. He didn't say it is desirable for people to contract the illness.
He said it is not desirable to stop the spread. He said it is not desirable to stop the spread.
And I've accepted that. But what he also talks about is the measures which would need to be taken
but not now.
To protect those who are most vulnerable of falling seriously ill as a result of it, because not all people would. And so
that's all right then, isn't it?
To explain. And he tried to explain, and I thought did so very effectively, why some of the measures that you and others with common sense approach to this, would think it was appropriate to take, but that actually would not have the effect that you think they would.
Okay.
And he also weighed up the pros and cons. There are finely balanced judgments here, and what I heard was a very careful weighing of those judgments and a close monitoring of the situation, so that if the situation changes and demands...
Right. So for now, do nothing, yeah?
Later on.
So for now, do nothing.
No, he told you very clearly, if you
He told me very clearly, if you've got a cold...
He reiterated what those were.
If you've got a cold, stay at
you should
home.
Self-isolate for at least 7 days, and he explained why.
Right. And you consider that, Jill, you consider that action, do you?
Hand-washing.
Jill, do you work for the Conservative Party? I mean, are you paid by them, or...?
No, I don't.
It sounds like it. It really sounds... I mean, look, you may well support...
to a public broadcast on public health,
Right.
and listens very carefully to the arguments.
Jill, you got one more... I'm going to give you another 15 seconds. Please tell the LBC audience what action the Prime Minister took today. Please, I'm all ears.
The Prime Minister took action to explain...
What action?
I'm trying. If you interrupt me when I'm in the middle of talking, it's hard to complete.
You've got 10 seconds left.
He gave very explicit advice to his health and scientific advisors as to what we should do in respect of isolating and in respect of protecting ourselves and our loved ones against the virus. And he described very clearly a staged plan and the rationale for it to protect the population at large, whilst acknowledging at the same time...
OK, Jill, thank you very much indeed. Very good to have your call. Let's go to Zach in Portsmouth. Zach, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Thank you for taking my call.
Good evening. Now, maybe, Zach, maybe Patrick Vallance, Sir Patrick is right. Maybe we just let this happen and develop herd immunity. But does that really make sense?
I cannot disagree with him any more than I can, and I'm not an expert. But just listening to your last caller, Jill, I didn't get a chance to really tell your call screener because I didn't get the time. But I was wanting to say that I've got I've got personal experience in this, in the sense that my dad succumbed to this virus in Hong Kong, and I've seen what doing nothing can actually do. And doing nothing brings on exactly what we're going through, and it's a disgrace to use terms like it's undesirable for as many people to get this, or we hope. We can't help that people will get this, because it's typical of an expert or a clinical expert to look at this in numbers or on a spreadsheet or in a flow diagram. But these are real lives. This is you, this is me, this is everybody else listening, and
it's our elderly relations, it's our neighbours.
Absolutely.
And do you know what, Zach? Do you know what I get? Going out round the country, I get people, working age people, they're not worried about themselves, but they've all got elderly friends, relatives, neighbours, and they're worried about them. Zach, we're out of time. I thank you very much for your point of view. It is now time for the news. It's 6:31. Holly Jones.
The government says the UK has now moved to the delay phase of its plan to tackle the coronavirus. Boris Johnson's called it the worst public health crisis for a generation. At the moment, anyone with a new cough or a high temperature is being advised to stay at home for 7 days. But the Prime Minister says one expected move won't happen.
We are not, repeat not, closing schools now. The scientific advice is that this could do more harm than good at this time. But of course, we're keeping this under review, and this, again, may change as the disease spreads.
The idea of the delay phase is to push back the peak of the infection by a few weeks to when the weather is warmer. 10 people have now died in the UK after testing positive. The outbreaks continue to have an effect on the markets. The FTSE 100 has suffered its biggest one-day fall since 1987. It's closed down nearly 11%. Stay with LBC for all the latest. LBC weather staying windy across the UK this evening with further scattered showers. Wind and rain easing for most overnight, a low of freezing.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
To London and London's readiness or otherwise as regards COVID-19. We're joined now by independent candidate for the Mayor of London, Rory Stewart.
Schools should be closed. Gatherings should be banned. There's very good evidence from the Spanish flu in 1919 that the cities that allowed their marathons and big public parades to go ahead had far greater fatality rates than those that cancelled them.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Simply Safe. Easy to choose, set up and use.
LBC.
At Morrison's, we're cutting hundreds of prices that will be held low. Like a litre of Flash All-Purpose Cleaner, that was £2. Now with a new lower price of £1. Morrisons. We're cutting prices for you. Majority of stores subject to availability.
Does it matter to you how your money's invested? Think about it. You've got your own values, but do the people who invest your money share them? With a Wealthify stocks and shares ISA, you can put your money into an ethical plan. Just tell us how you want to invest. Are you cautious, adventurous, or somewhere in between? And start your Wealthify ethical ISA today. Easy. For more information, download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
Heading to Leeds to see the grandparents. Little one's going to get spoilt rotten. If your trip is over a week away and you haven't booked your train ticket yet, that means you're in line to book LNER's Mighty Fine 29. It's only £29 each way from London to Leeds if you travel between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Nan, we're on our way. Book direct at lner.co.uk. £51,229 seats available up to a week before travel. Standard advance fares on direct trains, subject to availability.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face. And there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
For up to 50% off a choice of floors and beds. For an extra 20% off selected ranges. For something for everyone. Carpet Right. For life. Offer ends Tuesday.
Do you ever feel like getting back under your duvet in the middle of the day? Ferroglobin is a great tasting liquid formula with iron which contributes to the reduction of tiredness and fatigue and normal formation of haemoglobin. Ferroglobin from Vitabiotics at Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
One day, they'll build a statue of this horse. It's destined to be great. History made every time he runs. Just not today. Oh well, you've got fail to finish, so you get a free bet back. History can wait. For the passion of the bet. Coral Racing.
18 plus online and mobile. Applies to first real money single win or each way bet of £1 plus. £10 maximum free bet. Applies to selected races. All terms and exclusions at coral.co.uk. When the fun stops, stop.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
How well I remember the 19th of October, 1987. It was a Monday evening. I was in the office. I was working late. I was working the American closes. And I kept looking at the Dow Jones and it kept going lower and lower and lower. And it was the biggest, that Monday and Tuesday, the biggest stock market crash we'd had since 1929. And I remember that not being a barrel of fun that evening. Well, today, the FTSE 100 has suffered its biggest one-day fall since October 1987. And our stock exchange has plummeted 10.9% in one day. It is now down, getting on for 30% in the course of just over a week as coronavirus fears grip the market. So what's it all about? Well, what it's all about, of course, is the economy just simply closing down, firms potentially going bust. We've seen Flybe, it was in trouble already, going out of business. It's about income, absolutely freezing. People keep asking me, because I was in this game for a bit, is this the end of the problem? Well, all I can say is after the 2008 huge credit crunch banking crisis, the stock market fell 56% before it rallied very, very sharply. And I'm not sitting here on LBC as a stock tipster or anything like that, but I think I can say with some confidence, expect things to get worse before they get better. And I know for a lot of you out there who've got your own savings, invested in pensions and everything else, this is tough. But remember, folks, you've had 9 years of continuous growth. These things never go in straight lines. Not easy. Sterling too having a very rough day, finishing up down against the dollar at 126 and back down against the euro at 112. So the pound's down, the stock market's down, oil still languishes at $33 a barrel. But the good news is it shouldn't be too long before you're paying £1 a litre to fill up your car at the pumps. At least that's some good news amongst this difficulty. Now, I was talking with Jill earlier on from Surrey, and she disagreed very strongly. She was with the government policy. And let's hear some of the arguments being made as to why people like Jill think that. Let's listen to the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, and Sir Patrick Vallance, the Chief Scientific Advisor, telling us why they shouldn't put measures in too early. They're talking about behavioural science. Hear it through.
An important part of the science on this is actually the behavioural science, and what that shows is probably common sense to everybody in this audience, which is that people start off with the best of intentions, but enthusiasm at a certain point starts to flag. If you start too early, and then people's enthusiasm runs out just about the peak, which is exactly the time that we want people to be doing these interventions, that is actually not a productive way to do it. So we do need to do it at the last point it is reasonable, so people will maintain their energy and enthusiasm to get through what will be quite difficult things to do. It sounds trivial to say stay at home if you have minor symptoms, wait until you're doing it, and you will realise this is going to be difficult, and the other things we're asking are going to be difficult, and it's important we do not ask our fellow citizens to do them for longer than makes sense from the epidemiology.
Just to be really clear about that, the delay is to
Vallance
maximise the effect. It's not simply to delay, it's exactly as Chris has said, to make sure we don't end up with everything coming off just when you don't want it to come off.
So that's what they're saying. That is what Boris believes. It's what Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, believes. They believe if you act too... There are dangers, said Matthew Hancock in the House of Commons. There are dangers in acting too early. And the argument, you heard it there, is you say to people, close down, they get bored with it and decide, oh, the hell with it, let's get back down the pub, or whatever it may be, and they've got bored with it. Do you know what? I just don't buy this argument at all. Nor does Sheila from Arbroath in Scotland. She says to me, I find this an insult to the nation's intelligence, that we would get bored going through a pandemic, also allowing it to spread due to their thinking of a herding experiment. Is this not risking becoming more serious than it should be? Sheila, I get the point. I just don't think if we really are just 2 to 3 weeks away, maybe less, from where Italy is right at the moment, are people in Italy getting bored with what's going on, with a death toll that's rising by 25% a day, by the terrible things that are going on in Milan and elsewhere? They're far from getting bored. Tell you what they are doing, they're getting very scared, which actually means, despite the fact there are fines in place and martial law on the streets, very few people are being fined because they actually are hunkering down because they know just how serious this is. I just don't buy these arguments. I don't. Let's go to Magda, a new caller from Forest Hill. Magda, good evening.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for taking my call.
Welcome. So, does it all make sense to you, the government's action or inaction, should I say?
Not really. What I'm trying to say is I am originally from Poland, and I'm talking to my parents on a daily basis what's happening in Poland right now with coronavirus. And from Wednesday, I believe, all the schools, universities, dorms, everything is shut. Everybody needs to take 2 weeks off. And all the borders, I believe, are closed right now. There are no flights coming into Poland. Nothing is leaving Poland. We only have, at the moment, I think there is a first person who passed away from coronavirus today. But I think this country took some actions. However, living here for so long, I've never seen anything like it. And it actually scares me a little bit. I've seen people who really don't pay that much attention to coronavirus. But listening to the Cobra meeting today on the radio, I'm actually thinking that Boris Johnson and the whole crew that is right behind him have actually no idea what they're talking about. Advising people on not going to cruises and staying at home, it's not the right advice.
I mean, Magda, people weren't booking cruises in big numbers right at the moment anyway, you know. So, Magda, would you rather that the British government took a sort of Polish approach?
I think I would feel safer. Having children by myself, I think I would feel safer knowing that the government is actually really taking some steps to actually...
Yeah. And do you know, Magda, in Poland, I mean, do they have their scientific advisors on television the way that we do?
Probably they do. But also, here today, I heard that when you have the symptoms of, like, a high temperature or cough, do not call 111. Check online what are the symptoms, what can you do. Where in Poland, you should go to the hospital straight away and you will receive...
Oh, really?
treatment. Yes, where and this is what I'm thinking.
Very
like,
different.
What if I do have a coronavirus, and then my whole family have it at this point, and what shall we do? Just take paracetamol and lock ourselves in a house?
Yes, pretty much. Pretty much, Magda. I think that's what we are being told.
I mean, this is, for me, it's ridiculous. And also, I'm not ready to say goodbye to neither my parents or my in-laws who are in their 60s and 70s.
But Magda, you can ring 111. You can ring 111. And when you get through, they're brilliant. There is an NHS website, so there are places you can go. But Magda, thank you for your call and your testimony. Interesting, folks. Russia... Putin's Russia, in January, closed their borders. Not one single death from coronavirus so far. Maybe there's a link. Do you think possibly there's a link? I think there probably is. Let's go to Ali, a new caller from Slough. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Nigel. I just wanted to say I don't agree with the approach that the government is taking, but then I also think what the theme that's coming from the calls that you've taken so far and sort of the way you're thinking about it, I think that's also incorrect.
Okay, go on.
I think what I mean by that is...
Ali, put us all straight. Go on.
So by no means I'm going to do that. What I mean to say is, if the end result is that 80% of the world's population is going to get this, so if that's what we're working along the assumption of, I think in terms of trying to hide away from it, it's going to be impossible. If we close our borders, the moment one of us travels outside of this island, we'll bring it back with us, and you bring this hysteria back up. I think, like in terms of just looking at everything and the research that I've done on in terms of the very small amount of research is I think this should be like the way they should be pitching this is that this is the largest peacetime operation that is going to be conducted on this island. And what I mean by that is we should be out there, like in terms of how the Chinese went against it. They, for a population of, I think it was 11 million people, they built 14 hospitals. We all ridiculed the hospitals in terms of...
This was in Wuhan, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, in Wuhan, So it's like they built 14 hospitals. Each one of them was able to hold 1,000 beds. When you look into the numbers of each hospital, they had 4 or 5 ITU units set up for the elderly. The reality is, I've got an 80-year-old mum. She was last year in hospital for 3 months because of a respiratory issue. I had experience of it in the hospital. My local hospital, they only had 4 machines which were able to help someone when their lungs are full of pneumonia.
I know.
And she had to wait in the ward. So the point is, no one is actually turning around and saying, "Listen, guys, are we buying those machines? Do we have enough of them?"
So Ali, I was on daytime TV today, and I won't name him because it wouldn't be fair, but I met one of these very, very quite famous TV doctors, someone that you see a lot on our televisions, and I explained to him that my friends in Milan had told me the reason for the deaths going up as rapidly as they are is there is a shortage of lung ventilators, and they're trying to buy 1,000 off the Chinese, whose crisis has mercifully eased. And when I asked this pretty famous TV doctor this morning, did we have enough lung ventilators in the National Health Service? He said, no, we don't. Yeah. And that maybe partly explains the government wanting this to sort of slowly, wash your hands, do what you can. We're not really going to stop the spread of this virus. We're going to allow it to happen slowly so the NHS can cope with it. But Ali, I've got grave reservations. I've got to love you and leave you. Time has run out. And I tried to put the government... I try to be balanced there and put the argument for the government. But if this did all happen at once, we would, I'm afraid, have a terrible shortage of ITU facilities. And of course, people say, oh, well, Nigel, the private sector could help. No, private hospitals don't have ITU facilities. So this really would be a job for the NHS and the NHS only. And I think they're pretty scared about the prospects. It's 6:47. Time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
The UK has moved on to the delay stage of its response to the coronavirus outbreak, meaning from tomorrow, anyone with a new cough or a temperature is being asked to stay at home for 7 days. For now, there are no plans to cancel mass gatherings, and schools and colleges aren't closing. 10 people in the UK have now died, and there are at least 590 confirmed cases, although medical experts are warning there are likely to be many more. LBC weather staying windy across the UK this evening with further scattered showers, wind and rain easing for most overnight, a low of freezing.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are delays on the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 84 Reigate to Cleckett Lane services because of the roadworks where a lane stays closed. The recuse on the A1 Islington High Street northbound. It's partly blocked at Pentonville Road at the Angel. That's because of an accident. It's very slow in Camden. Eversholt Street northbound is partly blocked because of an accident near Mornington Crescent Station. It's slow on the A3 Clapham Common southside both ways because of an accident between Nelson's Row and Clapham Common Station. On the A3 Borough High Street southbound, it's very slow at Bedale Street. That's because of an accident. And on the trains, there's no service on London Overground between Clapham Junction and Surrey Quays because of a signal failure.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Coronavirus has dominated the news today for obvious reasons, but at 8 we talk to Labour leadership candidate Sir Keir Starmer. He'll be taking your calls.
Ian Dale on LBC.
London's air pollution affects everyone's health, especially children. The main cause? Road transport. By swapping just one car trip every week for walking, cycling or public transport, we can help make London's air cleaner together.
About 18 months ago, I invested in a bike. I was being really lazy and driving to work. I get to work much quicker. I've saved, I reckon, nearly £2,000 by cycling.
See how the Mayor and TfL are working towards cleaner air and how you can help too at lbc.co.uk.
Many of the latest electric cars could drive from Manchester to London on a single charge. The electric car is now the car. Search Go Ultra Low to find out more. Range may vary.
Keep coming. Yeah, bit more.
At Hey Car, you'll find the best used cars all in one place. Every car is quality checked and comes with a warranty. So finding your perfect used car is easy. You just need somewhere to park it.
Back. Whoa. Yeah, great. Stop.
To find your perfect used car, search Hey Car.
One day, they'll build a statue of this horse. It's destined to be great. History made every time he runs. Just not today. Oh well, you've got fail to finish, so you get a free bet back. History can wait. For the passion of the bet. Coral Racing.
18 plus online and mobile. Applies to first real money single win or each way bet of £1 plus. £10 maximum free bet. Applies to selected races. All terms and exclusions at coral.co.uk. When the fun stops, stop.
Turn on, turn off. With new BT TV, you're in control of the channels you love. And now with our super fast fibre customers. Visit bt.com.
Prices and content may change. 24-month term, bolt-ons renew unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Here's the thing about block management. If you do it yourself, you're over here sorting out the insurance. And here, keeping everything compliant.
Don't forget the grounds maintenance and the service charges.
And that's just what you need to do today. But because the ABC Estates block management team can look after every aspect of your property portfolio, from repairs to service charge collections, your time can, at last, be better spent elsewhere. Be as happy as Larry with block management from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. Talk to us today. Call 0800 888 6688 or visit abcestates.co.uk.
Here, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, some pretty strong views on Boris Johnson, his statement, and indeed what was said by his medical and scientific advisors. Mark from Hell's Owen says, I normally agree with Nigel, but this is nonsense. Boris has taken a balanced judgment based on advice from experts to give the best outcome for the country. Tony says to me, of course, they really want us to catch coronavirus to build up an immunity for the winter later this year. Let's just listen once again briefly to Sir Patrick Vallance, the chief scientific advisor to the government.
It's not possible to stop everybody getting it, and it's also actually not desirable because you want some immunity in the population. We need to have immunity to protect ourselves from this in the future.
That is government policy, all right? And I don't know. Maybe the science of that is right. My own feeling is we should be trying to stop the spread. That's where I come at this from. I'm going to Michael, a new caller from Gerrard's Cross. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening, Nigel. Thank you for taking my call.
Not at all, not at all. So, how do you view our government's approach?
No, not at all. I heard the news about the Cobra meeting today, and to be honest, I could have just. To be honest, it sounds to me like just a joke. It's just I don't think they actually have a clue exactly what's going on in the world. So I just came back from Italy two weeks ago. I work over there, and I work in the police department over there. I've been in the hospitals every day. I've seen it with my own eyes, people coming in and out. And the country is actually in a war zone right now. And when I hear people saying, when politicians saying that we cannot stop this, that is not true. We can stop it. It's a simple thing. People should stay indoors, and that's it. You will not get it if you stay indoors.
Now, you came back, Michael, you came back two weeks ago. Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't until the 9th of March that some advice was offered for those who'd come back from Italy, and told that they should use 111 if they need to, and self-isolate. But I mean, I couldn't believe, Michael, I was sitting here at this desk on Sunday, the day that Lombardy declared an emergency, and started to shut down Lombardy, and 17 flights from Milan, Malpensa landed in the United Kingdom without a single check, without a single piece of advice. I simply couldn't believe it, Michael.
Absolutely. And I can tell you even more. I mean, the flights, they haven't been stopped recently because of the coronavirus. The flights have been stopped because there was no passengers on it. Otherwise,
the commercial thing.
The commercial would just carry on flying.
So Michael, when are you heading back to Italy?
Well,
I wasn't wishing it on you, I promise.
To be honest, I can't go back until this is over now. So if I go back, then I'll have to stay there, and I can't because I got my family over here. So I'll have to stay here. So no income for you for a bit, Michael? Oh, no. Unfortunately enough, I do still get paid for it.
Do you? Oh, lucky you. Yeah. Oh, well, enjoy the holiday in your case. Okay. Michael, thank you very much indeed. And, Michael, who's seen it firsthand in Italy, thinks the government are underestimating it. That is my feeling too. Lots and lots and lots of opinions. A lot of dramatic action by other nations, but with minimal effect. Changing my deck chairs on my Titanic helps nobody, says Rob. Well, do you know what? I'm going to repeat this point. If this really does turn horrid over the next few weeks and months, the public will be very forgiving of a government who they think did their very best. They'll be far less forgiving of a government who they don't believe did. And I think that's a really important point. Yes, you've got scientific advice, but you know something, folks? Different scientific advisors give different scientific opinions and views, and in the end, it's about political action. Steve is calling from Hackney. Steve, good evening.
Hello, Nigel.
Good evening. So,
great show.
Thank you.
Listen here.
Thank you. Well, we're trying to have a proper debate and make sure you all hear both sides of the argument. So where do you stand, Steve?
I think that the government are doing the right thing.
Okay.
I think that they have to listen to the scientific advice available to them. And it feels like you guys are using this as a political sledgehammer to smash the government.
I don't want to smash the government, Steve. I fully support the government on Brexit, the biggest constitutional change in 300 years.
I'm behind you on that one.
And I love what they're saying. And Steve, you've heard me. If you listen to the show, I will praise where I think it's right. Steve, I just find the words of the chief scientific officer difficult to listen to? Do you want to hear them, Steve? Do you want to hear them, Steve?
I heard them before. You played them a number of times.
Okay.
But listen, can you tell me any political reason why the government should just be limbo in this situation if they don't think they're doing the right thing? I mean, what do they have to gain?
Well, I wouldn't say the government aren't doing the right thing, Steve. I'd say the government are doing nothing. Nothing. What are they doing? Don't go on a cruise.
Do they have?
Well,
what kind of political gain do they have out of this? They must be acting in their best sense of judgment.
Their best judgment, Steve, is to follow the advice from the scientists, which is to allow the slow spread of the coronavirus through the population of this country so that most of us get it, but we get it in a gradual way so that the National Health Service can cope with the casualties and so that we build a herd immunity against it coming back in the winter in an even nastier form. That is that is the government. Steve, that is the government position, and you may well support that. I just feel we ought to do our utmost to stop the spread of it.
But if then it's going to hit us again in the winter, and we'll be dead ducks, what's the point?
Because, Steve, I'll tell you why. Because by then we'll have a vaccine.
You're not sure about that, are you?
Do you know what, Steve?
You have no guarantee.
Do you know what, Steve? Do you know what, Steve? None of us have any guarantees of any of this. We really don't. Thank you for your call. Thank you for your very, very strong opinions this evening. Well, we'll wait and see what President Macron has to say. He's going to be up in a moment. I'm going to be back with you on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. At 10 tonight's Tom Swarbrick, but right now it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much. Well, we will obviously be talking a lot about coronavirus in the news hour. Plus, we'll be getting your views on what Boris Johnson had to say at the press conference after 9. But at 8, Sir Keir Starmer, the future leader of the Labour Party, it seems, is going to be joining me for the whole hour. It'll be your chance to put your questions to Keir Starmer. The lines are open right now, 0345 6060 973, or you can email me a question, Ian, IAIN, at LBC.co.uk. And as I say, after 9, we'll be taking your calls on, were you reassured by what Boris Johnson had to say? It was a fairly sober press conference, wasn't it? That'll be coming up right after 9.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.